Hello, BookTube. All right, we're continuing this library tour by popular demand. I floated the idea yesterday that maybe you might want a break, and I heard via comments and text and email from many different people that you don't that you don't want a break. So we won't be breaking. I guess we'll just keep doing these. I don't know that I want to do a library tour on a Sunday, but we'll see how long it takes my nether parts to recover from being squatted down in puppy territory this long. So we're just going to do this next shelf. We did the transverse books that were blocking the normal books. Now we'll do the normal books for this next shelf. And once again, I am assuming that the books here are in no rhyme or order at all. So if that grates against your delicate snowflake sensibilities, you might want to prepare yourselves. So what is this first one? Oh, look at you. Okay. Okay, this is a bit of an oddity. A long time ago, 10 years ago more, at the bookstore where I used to work, I had a regular customer. It had to be more than 10 years ago. I had a regular customer, a wonderful woman, who used to bring in her tiny little dog, Red. And he was always perched on her shoulder, and he and I got along very well. I heard from her a variation on what I've heard countless times in my life. A variation on, boy, he sure seems to like you more than he likes other people. We got along really well. So one day she told me she had a book for me. And I'd already told my customers, don't get me books, please. No matter how many books I give you, no matter how many great recommendations I give you, don't bring me in a book from your attic or whatever. And my spirits sunk just a little, but she had made a book about Red. There he is. He's probably long gone by now. He must be long gone by now. There's the back. And this is just a children's book about colors, with starring Red in all of his different color moods, and finishing up with a rainbow. And that's all it is. It's just a book about Red. Wonderful. Okay, this next one is also a dog book. This is a great oblong picture book of dogs in art and history. I have a million of these things. I love them. I go through them periodically, so they don't just sit here. Okay. This how odd. This is a book by James Davidson, who is a classicist and historian that I really like. And this is not classical history. This is one Mykonos. The inscription being ancient, being islands, being giants, being gay. And this is about the thriving gay scene on the Greek island of Mykonos. And this is atmospheric and kaleidoscopic. It's not anything like the rest of his work. I like it very much. I have gone back to it. This one is, I don't know if you can make it out, but it is warped and damaged because it's one of the only books that survived a big fire that I had in my library years and years ago, where there was a fire and then there was the fireman's hose, and most of the books did not survive. But everything, the section that they hit, the books that didn't survive, most of that whole section was biographies and autobiographies, and this was one of them, and it must have been on the fringes somewhere because it survived. This next one is new. Oh, right, okay. This is critically acclaimed. A trade paperback with... I just love it. I thought it was just perfect. It's a collection of movie reviews by various different writers of movies that never existed. Movies that were either rumored or were entirely fictitious. And boy, oh boy, the authors are having so much fun. Oh my. Okay, this is another dog book. This is Rick Bass's Coulter, one of the greatest dog books ever written, about... the author is a beautiful writer. He writes his books. He's worth finding in anything that he writes about anything at all. He's even great on rhinoceroses. But this book is not just a celebration of dogs. It's a celebration of that one kind of dog. The dog people out there listening will know what I mean. You love them all. But if you have multiple dogs in your life, there's going to be that one kind of dog. Not one particular dog. It'll never be... Usually, it's been my experience that it's not just one representative in that class, but there is a kind of dog that is unlike the others. You love them all. You support them all. You want to play with them all. You're interested in them all. But there's one that goes deeper than that. There's one kind of dog that goes deeper than that. And this is Bass not only writing about his love of dogs, but writing about one of those dogs. And it's heartbreaking. Just gorgeous. Okay, this is Peter Schaefer. This is Amadeus, his play Amadeus. I probably got this... When did this paperback come out? I probably got this in the mid-'80s. And it's really good. I mean, I like Peter Schaefer as a playwright, just in general. I wish I had a big collected. Okay, all right. This next one is, I don't know why I have it in this format. This next one is a terrific L. Sprague de Camp novel called Lest Darkness Fall, in which a man from the 20th century is transported back to ancient Rome and knows what's coming and tries to avert it using modern technology and his modern know-how. And it's funny and wistful, and it's just delightful. One of the best things this author ever wrote. And I had this forever in I believe, a pocket paperback with a terrific cover. And I don't have that anymore, that mass market. I have this instead, and I don't know why. I'm curious to know what the chain of events was there. I don't know where that mass market is. I'll probably never see it again. Okay. All right, this is a great book. One of the greatest books on books that I have ever read. Let me see if I can find a great quote. This is An Experiment in Criticism by C.S. Lewis. This is an old Canto paperback reprint. Literary folk. Forced to talk incessantly about books, what can they do but try to make books into the sort of things they can talk about? Hence, literature becomes for them a religion, a philosophy, a school of ethics, a psychotherapy, a sociology, anything rather than a collection of works of art. Oh my. There's something absolutely quotable on every page of this book. This is it's just amazing. It's just I'm looking at all the stuff that I have underlined here. The whole thing is practically underlined. But suppose you had gone in a quite different way to work. Suppose you had given me enough rope to let me hang myself. You might have encouraged me to talk about Lamb, discovered that I was ignoring some things he really has and reading into him a good many things that aren't there, that I seldom in fact read what I so praised, and that the very terms in which I praised it revealed how completely it was for me a mere stimulant to wistful, whimsical reveries of my own. And suppose that you then went round applying the same methods of detection to other admirers of Lamb, and each time got the same result. If you had done this, then, though you would never reach a mathematical certainty, you would have the solid ground for steadily growing conviction that Lamb is bad. Well, anyway, I'm not gonna just keep quoting from it. I don't know if An Experiment in Criticism is still in print. In the last few mail or library tours like this, I have confidently said such and such or so and so is certainly not in print anymore, and then had people pop up in the comments field and say, "Sure it is. It's all in print. Yay!" So, for all I know, there is a really attractive hardcover or paperback of An Experiment in Criticism. If there is an available volume, you should get it. If you love reading and you love books, you should read that. You should make sure that's one of the things you've read. It's not long at all, and it is just invigorating. Okay, all right, this doesn't belong here. This belongs somewhere else. This is George Dangerfield, The Strange Death of Liberal England. This is one of, I have two of these old Paladin paperbacks, both of which I've heavily reinforced, and both of which are nevertheless falling apart. And I do not have a solid format rereadable copy of this book, or I wouldn't give for a Penguin trade paperback. Now that you can't tell me exists, because I know that it doesn't, and I wish that it did, because this is also quotable on every page. This is an amazingly eloquent work of historical analysis. Okay, then we have Coulter again. Here, let me put that right next to the other copy, and then okay, then we have An Experiment in Criticism again in a different format. So let me put that right next to the other one. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see if we can't have original. Oh, okay, all right. This is Sir Arthur Quiller Couch, the legendary editor of the Oxford Book of English Verse. This is his book on Shakespeare's workmanship. That has, it's the typical. This is Victorian, I believe. Or no, 1931. So for this author, who would be Edwardian, because he stopped learning in the Edwardian era. But it's just a series of observations about how Shakespeare works on the stage, how he makes his scenery, how he makes his stagecraft. And, you know, as with any book like that, it will have really interesting stuff in it. So, again, in an ideal version of this library, I would have 2 whole shelves of Shakespeare books. And that would be there, instead of they're scattered all throughout here. That really shouldn't be, but you're going to see that come up a lot. Okay, this is the paperback of a new book. This came out just a few years ago, I think. When did this come out? What have we got here? 2016. This is Kenneth Goldsmith, Wasting Time on the Internet. And there's a cat with a delay circle on it, and it's like a couple of other books that we've seen here. They all should be together, of course. The Jaron Lanier, the Fourth Dimensional Human, those should all be together. But like those books, it's a really good meditation on our internet life, which is a huge part of our life. So people love to deny that, but it's nevertheless true. It's a huge part of our life. So, and comparatively understudied for that fact. Okay, all right, this doesn't belong here. This belongs in the other room, as you're going to see. This is Anne Fadiman's great book, Ex Libris, about reading, all about reading. Another great book to have on reading. One of the ones, I mean, Experiment in Criticism, yes, I'll put it right next to that. But this one, too, just a tremendous series of reflections on reading. I love it more every time I read it. Oh my. Okay. All right. This doesn't belong here either. This is a classic. This is Frank Copley's translation of De Rerum Natura by Lucretius, and it's a very nice Norton paperback that I've just kept because it's in my opinion by far the best English translation of this poem. Really good notes. Really good sense on the page in English. I don't know when the last time is that I read this. It has to be a while because this is not reinforced. But it doesn't belong here. It belongs with classics. I have 2 whole shelves of classics in the little book room. Oh my. Okay, this is an old, oh my. How old is this thing? I don't think it'll even tell me how old it is. This has got to be 100 years old. 1931, closing in on 100 years. This is a guide to the State House here in Boston. There is the famous gold leaf dome. Those of you who've never been here, I would happily take you to the State House. The State House is up on the top of the Common, and I know every inch of it. I know every inch, every back alley, every basement room of that entire building complex. I've spent so much time there as a kind of an unofficial guest in the State House Library, which is not otherwise open to the public. Many times going to the little State House post office, which is down in the basement and which is run on odd hours, but which is a fully accredited post office. So if you're working in the State House, as I often am, or often many times, oh my God, for decades, I was working directly across the street from the State House. Well, not directly across the street from the State House is the Shaw Memorial at the top of Boston Common, but you know, at a tiny little angle to the front of the State House is the Boston Athenaeum, where I used to work forever and ever. I would work all day long at the Boston Athenaeum, and then I would break for lunch there's one particular restaurant right up the street, right next to the Athenaeum, and I would often do my postal work. I'd just cross the street and go to the post office inside the State House, and got to walk around. I know all the nooks and crannies of that building, and I love it. This is an old guidebook to it. Not much has changed. So, although there's probably this thing 1931. Now there's air conditioning, so that's good. I remember when it didn't have air conditioning, and it could be pestilential in summertime. Okay, this is a piece of contemporary fiction from 2010. This is Under the Small Lights by John Kotter. A well-designed paperback here that is the story of a small group of young people learning how to grow up in upper middle class Connecticut. And there's lots of sex and lots of drugs and lots of eloquent writing. And a great scene at Walden Pond. And so if this is still available on Amazon, I'm not going to go through the usual routine about saying this isn't available anymore. But if it's still available on Amazon and you want to read something like that, you couldn't do any better. So just tootle on over and buy yourself a copy. Okay, all right, David Ray Griffin. David Ray Griffin, his name will be known to some of you. He is I would say probably the most respectable voice, was for a long time the most respectable voice in the ranks of 9/11 truthers. People who say that the official story, they don't agree on anything, but except one thing, that the official story of what happened on the terrorist attacks of September 11th isn't true. That the official story is wrong, either because the officials themselves are making it wrong or because they are mistaken. But one way or another, that the facts don't add up to the official story. And many, many people went on the lecture circuit and made good money doing that, and also creating YouTube channels, endlessly repeating and extrapolating on new theories. And David Ray Griffin was probably the most respectable of them. He's a published theologian who just went on that circuit and did talks of his own. I don't know, in the new censorship that has clamped down on YouTube, I don't know if any David Ray Griffin lectures are still available on YouTube. I should look and see. I hope they are. I don't agree with that censorship decision at all. I don't think YouTube should censor anything. It's like I always say, you know, the two-word warning that we have now in this part of the 20th century is both interesting and terrifying, and that those two words are deplatforming works. But what are you getting if you censor people on YouTube? Yes, you're making your site more advertiser friendly, but you're doing it in flagrant violation of. Well, anyway, this is one of his books. He did many books. This is 9/11 Unmasked, an international review panel investigation, where he got together a whole bunch of other 9/11 truthers, a whole bunch of engineers and architects and pilots and whatnot, and just goes over all of the usual objections that 9/11 truthers have to everything, from the physics of whether or not the airplanes could actually do the maneuvers they needed to do, to whether or not the pilots that we know of could have made the airplanes do those maneuvers, to whether or not jet fuel could have caused, or jet fuel and structural damage could have caused the Twin Towers to collapse, much less collapse immediately, to building number 7, which was hit by debris from the Twin Towers but did not get struck by an airplane itself and yet fell, to Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the plane then went down in the field there, and especially the gouge in the field and whether or not it makes any forensic sense that a plane went down there, to, in my opinion, especially the strike on the Pentagon. The essays in this book and in many books like it go on at great length to say that the forensics, the actual analysis of what happened, doesn't match up with what we're being told. I think it's all fascinating. I think it speaks as much to some dark areas in the psychologies of the 9/11 truthers as it does to actual truth. But now I'm wondering, I hadn't thought about it before, now I'm wondering how many of those videos are gone from YouTube. And if they are, where would you find them? Otherwise, I don't know. Okay, all right. This next one is, in large part, a product of Open Letters Monthly. This is Culture Fever by Stephen Akey. It's a collection of literary essays, and by one of the best writers that we ever published at Open Letters. And quite a few of these pieces came from Open Letters. I don't. Okay. Well. Okay. No. All right. Well. No. This is a lot more than I remembered. So some of these things did. Maybe not the majority of them, but they're wonderful. Stephen Akey is wonderful. So once again, I don't know if this is still available on Amazon. This was a while ago. This was 2018. So this will still be available. Stephen Akey was one of those. We attracted at Open Letters a cadre of really talented authors, and we did precious little for them other than nits and picks and a little tips and advice here and there. These authors benefited greatly from the fact that on the editorial team at Open Letters were a whole bunch of fantastic writers, including Sam Sachs, who is the fiction chronicler for the Wall Street Journal, and also John Kotter, who is one of the most talented writers that I know of alive today. And you had those people carefully reading your work. That helps a lot. That can help anybody's work. That helps a lot. So Stephen Akey has a book here. That's wonderful. Again, it should be with the books on books and literary essays, and it shouldn't even be out here. God help us. If I'm going to have anybody in my literary section, it's going to be somebody that I worked with. What is this next one? Oh, it's a hardcover. Okay, all right. This is from... this is also a new book. Still has the pub sheet in it. This is from 2018. This is by Gary MacDonald, and it is The Gospel of Thomas the Younger. It's a novel. This is, you can see the neat cover design. It's a novel about a new gospel that's discovered, and it's basically the author doing a gospel pastiche. What would the new gospel be like? What things might it set to rest, and what things might it exacerbate in terms of curiosity, in terms of controversies. Wonderful stuff. Couldn't bear to let go of it. Okay, this next one is a wonderful little hardcover from Delacorte Press of Gordon Grice's The Red Hourglass. As horrifying a work of nonfiction as you will ever read. This is about, among other things, black widow spiders. There's a black widow spider on the cover. Rattlesnakes, poisonous and loathsome animals, including an unforgettable chapter on the brown recluse spider and what it will do to you. What brown recluse spider venom will do to you if you are bitten by a brown recluse spider. Sometimes it does nothing. Sometimes it does something that's very small, a miniature thing, a minor irritant, and sometimes it is unbelievably life-threatening and grotesque. So, and that essay, I don't believe there's anyone who's read this book that won't think that is the standout essay. But the rest of it is fantastic too. What a book this is! Oh boy, you should find The Red Hourglass and get a copy if you love nature writing, even though it's going to test you quite a bit. It's going to test your intestinal fortitude. Okay, this is David Michael, 2 poems. The author just printed this. This is indie poetry. He contacted me years ago and asked if he could send me this. There's no date here on this. I don't think I have any. Oh, hang on. There's a note in a bottle here, but people don't date their notes anymore. So no. Okay, just a note of from him telling me that this is what he did. This is just poetry of his, not available commercially, but wonderful. I loved it. All right. This belongs with the. This is another book about the State House. That is a much better picture of the State House. There, you've got the gold leaf dome. But that is a much better idea. A much better idea of what the building looks like. There are a lot more trees around it now. This came out. When? 1964. This came out in 1964, and that picture on the cover, I believe, is much earlier than that. But this is just another guidebook to the State House. I used to find these things and just snap them up if they were cheap. This should be let me put it with the other State House book. Let's see here. Oh, all right. This is another, boy, we're hitting a theme of Boston books. This is a great illustrated book called Mr. Bullfinch's Boston, about a guide to the Bullfinch architecture of Boston. With I believe this only has sketches. Yeah, there's the State House again. It only has sketches. It does not have any pictures. It does not have any photos. And it's delightful. It's delightfully written. Again, this should be, let me put this with the other State House books. Oh no, it's another Boston book. Good Lord. This is a classic. This is a paperback reprint, but this came out, 1914. This is old. This is a newer paperback reprint of Days and Ways in Old Boston. And again, it's got sepia tone photos, but also lots and lots of drawings. That is the State House yet again. We're not going to get anywhere away from the State House here in Boston. I feel like maybe that means I should go visit. Maybe that's an omen that I should go visit, talk to some people, and hang out for a bit. Yeah, and I would, and I would probably take you along now that YouTube is part of my life, except it means leaving Frida. It means just opting to leave her. And maybe when she's a little older and I know she's just going to sleep peacefully, but when she's this young and is just actively going to miss me the whole time, then I don't want to do it. I mean, I don't know. I used to. I have done it innumerable times in the past. But somehow or other, I don't have the will to do it as much now as I used to. Partly because I just adore her. Partly because she's alone. It's just us. She doesn't have any dogs for company. That made it easier to do. And also partly because I work at home. There is almost absolutely no reason for me to leave her. I have some outside obligations, but otherwise I can spend all my time with her. And I know that in what feels like 2 minutes, she's going to be at the end of her life, and I'm going to wish for every single minute of memory that I have with her. So I just don't do it. I barely go to the Brattle Bookshop anymore. I don't go to the Athenaeum anymore. I don't go to the Boston Public Library, the Bates Hall. I don't go to the State House and talk to my old cronies. I don't do anything like that. Maybe in a couple of years, when Frida's a little older. She's slowing down already just a bit. When she's 4, I think she will probably just sleep all day. But anyway, oh, great. Okay, this is Rex Wednesbury. This is an older book from, I think, 10 years old. This is The Roman Book, a study of what books and literature, book selling, publishing, editing, writing, all of that, copying, what all of that was like in the Roman world. And I kept it because it's the best book I've seen on the subject. So if you want to, if you want to know what books were for the Romans, how they bought them, how they resold them, where they sold them, how they stored them in libraries, how they commissioned them, how they wrote them, this has everything, and it's so good. All right, this next one is Best American Series. We've seen that on this channel before. Best American Short Stories is, of course, their most popular run, but they've started to do lots of others, nature writing and mystery writing and all that sort of stuff. This is Best American Essays from 2003, with the guest editor being Robert Atwan. And the reason that I kept this when I don't have all the others is for one essay. Let me see if I can find it. This has lots of great stuff in it, don't get me wrong, but it has one essay in particular, yes, by Elaine Scarry, called Citizenship in Emergency, which is about 9/11 and also about 9/11 in the broader sense of the usurpations of citizenship that happened under the cloak of 9/11. It's an amazing, fiery piece of writing. Probably it's available entirely online. If it is, you should spare 20 minutes and read it. But that's why I have it in this book, because I have never looked for it online, and I wouldn't do without it. Okay, all right. This next one is a magazine. It's a journal, a learned journal. It's Arion, which is a journal of classic studies. And this is a special issue that they did on 2 people. You've got an inset and a photo and a picture. The inset is William Arrowsmith, who was a great classicist, great translator, a heck of a guy. And the other is John J. Chapman, who was also a great classicist, a great translator, and also a heck of a guy. And this issue is devoted to both of those. So the table of contents has, let's see here, it has essays about John J. Chapman. It has his classical essays themselves reprinted here, and it has a bunch of stuff that Arrowsmith wrote and also stuff about him. It is a great issue, even by Arion standards. So I kept it, even though I don't think I have any of the other issues. What's this? Next one's heavy. Oh, very good. Okay, the reason this is heavy is because it's lavishly illustrated. This is by Daniel Loxton and the great Donald Prothero. This is Abominable Science. And it is a study of and methodological takedown of cryptozoology. Every single thing, from the Abominable Snowman to Loch Ness Monster to all the others. Just this is a pair of scientists going through and just dismantling any possibility that any of these things exists. It's an amazing, amazing book, even though it did not completely kill my belief that maybe there are some things out there, some large cryptids out there in the world that we don't know. And I think that the authors can be, especially Prothero, can be a little bit dismissive of what amounts to a large body of photographic evidence of things that cannot be readily explained. Where you look at a photo of a gigantic cat in a British field and you think, okay, well, that is certainly not a house cat. It's not a photo. Let's say there's video too. That is certainly not a house cat. And according to these kinds of scientists, there are no large cats that live here. So, so we're both looking at this. And I think that's true for a number of different possible cryptids. I kept the book because it's thrilling to read, but it didn't completely kill. I want to believe. Okay, all right, this next one is old. Boy, I wish I had a dust jacket for this thing. I wish I had. This is from 1914. This is Julian Street's Abroad at Home. And this is all about him traveling in in 1913, what traveling was like on trains, and the various etiquettes involved. Plenty of hilarious anecdotes about fellow travelers. Wonderful old book, a curiosity, obviously, because travel has completely changed. This author, I believe, also did a book, a tiny little thing that I don't own. I don't think I've ever read it, called Shipboard. Who hasn't been? With board being B-O-R-E-D, and it's a book about being bored on a ship, which was the only way to cross the Atlantic at the time that it was written. And the subtitle says it all. Who hasn't been? It was a completely common phenomenon that is now no longer common at all. It's completely foreign. Most people have never crossed the ocean by boat now. And when Street wrote that book, that little book, there was no other option. That was how you did it. And he wrote a book about the foils and the personalities involved and all that sort of thing. Delightful. I wish I had it, but Abroad at Home is also wonderful. Okay, then we have, this is actually someone that we have seen in our biography tour, or she's been mentioned in our biography tour. Her family certainly has been. This is Mildred Aldrich. This is Hilltop on the Marne. And this is about, she bought a little house on the Marne, and then World War I happened. And I wonder if I have a picture of the little house. Yeah, there we go. She bought a little house on the hilltop on the Marne, and of course the Battle of the Marne, you know, the area became famous in just the last way you want an area to become famous if you're a homeowner. But delightful stuff. I don't know anything about whether or not this is still in print or any version of it, but what have we got? Okay. Okay, this is George Pitcher. This is The Dogs Who Came to Stay. Another great dog book. Doesn't belong here. It belongs with the Coulter books. Another truly heartfelt little book about the love of dogs. Delightful. Probably worth your time to get. This thing. Oh, okay. All right, this is from 2007. This is... okay, this is... oh, wow, I'm going to have to reread this. This is Richard Posner. And this is The Little Book of Plagiarism. This is all about plagiarism. This came out from Norton? No, Pantheon. This is all about plagiarism. What it is, what it isn't, what it actually does, why we think it's bad. Full of ideas. Just full. We're almost at the end here. Don't worry. It's another hideously long video. Okay, Stephen Akey, Literary Lapses. A much battered old hardcover. These are just fun, occasional humorous essays by a man who used to be known for that. He's now forgotten, but the Literary Lapses is, in my opinion, his best book, this collection. And lastly, this, Burke Boyce's book, Man from Mount Vernon. A very, very good novel about George Washington and about the American Revolution. Very, very good. Not at all what it looks like. I know what it looks like, but it's not at all. It's an incredibly serious historical novel that is tremendously effective. So I recommend it. I don't know if it's in print. One of you's going to tell me that it's been in print. Of course it is. I've got it right under my elbow. But nevertheless, if you can find a copy and you're interested in reading history of George Washington, historical fiction, put this on your list, definitely, because it's, I think, probably one of the best Washington historical novels that's ever been written. Including that list would also include Citizen Washington by William Martin. And that's it. That is our next bookshelf. So the next shelf is the last one for this bookcase. So we will do the transfers, the outside books first, and then we'll do the shelf. So it'll probably be another day or two, and then we'll be done with this bookcase, and we'll move on to the next one. So I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.